All right, we're live. Welcome to the Clarity Hotline. Let's get our friends over on Instagram on here. See me trying to come on time now. Doing my best. Which kind of brings me to a little topic we'll talk about today. Okay. Hello, welcome. Okay. Official. Welcome to the Clarity Hotline, Clutter Free family. Oh, how is everybody doing? How are you? Say hello if you're here so that I know you're on with me. We've been getting a lot of parenting questions. I just want to throw that out there and say those are all welcome. And it's very actually enlightening to me that that there are so many questions that I'm not alone in feeling really like, what do I do here? What do I do right now? I don't know. I just had a day like that today. Already, and it's only noon here for me, my time. And I've already had a day where I was just like, I don't know what to do with you. Let's ground down. Let's come and be present, which is a word my boys are now using because we started our day. I said, let's just sit here. Let's be here. They crawled into my bed with me and I said, okay, before we start our day, let's sit crisscross applesauce. And my younger son, immediately wants to meditate. But I said, okay, yeah, we could do that too. Let's definitely get quiet, and then let's also see how we feel in our bodies. So, what do you feel like in your body? And my younger son said, excited, and the older one said, normal, calm, present. And I was like, okay, great. I said, I'm feeling very present too. I'd been up for 2 hours already. And I was like, I feel very present too. And I found that very valuable. Anyway, that's how we'll be starting our day. I fit in yoga as often as we can, some type of outdoor nature walk as often as we can, and meditation or just quiet time. Just like, get your thoughts out, talk to me, let's sit down together and look at each other and connect to the point where, like, I could sense that my older son was kind of having a meltdown and he needed some encouragement, but it wasn't coming fast enough. I don't know for him. And I took his hand and I said, and he's like, why do you need my hand? And I said, oh, just if you need to connect. I said, touch and hugs and things like that are ways to connect and bond. And um, for me, it helps me like settle my energy, touch and things like that. But it's okay if you don't want that. But I wanted him to know that it was an option because he's a cuddler. He loves to cuddle. So I just was like throwing it out there, just letting you know, you know, I I I get you're frustrated. But it was uh, it will yeah, we went to the store, we ran an errand, and everything was all good until, like, that moment when it's just like the kid gets, I don't know, on a rampage with a thought or they're hangry and you just kind of can't stop the steam train. And you do your best, but there's some casualties along the way, and a lot of times it's me and my sanity. um but yeah, so let's center and ground. Let's come and be present, kind of like I did this morning, and sit just with your body erect, your spine erect, and shoulders relaxed. Let them fall away from your ear. Imagine just creating a lot of space around your neck. And then inviting in oxygen and breath and space into your entire body, wherever it's tense, wherever you're holding on to something, wherever you're holding on to tension, grief, despair, shame, guilt, um, pain. What else? Um, Confusion, despair, longing, wondering. hoping, wishing, things like that. If you're kind of feeling yourself clinging to those things, just take a big breath in and wash them away with breath. I mean, the good thing is about something I mentioned last week is I don't want to label things. So, as much as I can, I will sit with the feeling without labeling it as an emotion. I've heard it said that an emotion is the body's way of um, defining what you're feeling. I don't agree with that. I actually think that I get what they're trying to say, but I think it's the mind giving it a label. The feeling is in the body, right? We're sentient beings. What we're feeling is in our bodies. That feeling of the knotted stomach, that feeling of like a tense neck or tense shoulders, and just like you kind of have to do this, right? That's a feeling. This is all the body talking to you. Nausea, the body's talking to you. Pain in the feet, the body's talking to you, right? Like, take care of me, take care of me. I'm doing a lot of work to keep up with you, mind, and just want to make sure we're on the same page here. Okay, so I don't break down because you're pushing me too hard. And not that if we don't believe we're pushing ourselves too hard, then can we be pushing ourselves too hard? Because really, it's mind over matter, in my opinion. It's really mind before matter, even more so. It's kind of like what we believe, we make happen, right? What we think and believe, we create. And I think that what we're making a thought form, we're putting into our lives, right? We're making it real. And if we're sensing, okay, the body's in pain or hurting or achy, and you don't stop and acknowledge that and really give it what it needs, hydration, rest, a massage, yoga, whatever, stretching, foam rolling, a good jog in nature, or a slow walk right along the beach, whatever it is. I think that's our mind acknowledging that what we're sensing is a thing, and not making some reparations, not um, giving it the opposite of what it's been getting, which is maybe go, 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 do, and not giving it the rest and the non doing and the just being, right? So I think, I think that just to make sure I'm wrapping that up. So the body is giving off that sensation. We're sensing these things in the body. The body is talking to us. It's letting us know things are hurting and soon to be in disrepair if you don't take some time to slow down and attend to me. And we can respond or we can't, right? We can respond in kind and give it what it needs, or we can say no, and do whatever else we want, and just keep going and doing and all that. So then we're at choice, right? At any moment, what to do when it comes to what the body needs. And so I think that is when the body starts to break down, is when the mind is saying, oh, I see you hurting over there, but I'm just going to walk on by. I'm going to ignore it and pretend it doesn't happen. We got work to do. And we're on a timeline. And I don't need this right now. Nope, keep working. You don't need a break. Didn't you just take your 15? Oh yeah, no, you're good. Keep going. And I think to some extent that's tough, and we got this. And yeah, no, who needs rest? We'll rest when we die. There's that kind of like, okay, I know there's I've felt that before. That type of just hardcore hustle. I've definitely felt that and probably have been wrapped up all in it. But I've completely gone the opposite way since being a mother. And I think if anything, my hustle is just mothering. I'm a hustler as a mother. And um, but no, really, in all truth, I don't believe in I don't believe in the sanctity of hustle. I think there's a lot of damage. And that's just because, like, you've got to rest in equal parts to doing and going. You've got to counter that. That is a balanced life. And so if we don't balance that with its opposite, right, with its counter, with its the flip side of the coin, then we're operating on a wobbly car. This vehicle's wobbly, and it's one day, yeah, it's gonna break a hip. It's gonna lose a tire. It's gonna fall and have to sit at the side of the road and wait for help, hoping somebody comes and gives us the help that we need, right? Has the spare that we don't have. Or, we're just kind of like crutching along and hoping. Um, all that to say, I'll get into our question. But let's just, yeah, ground down. Let's just be here. Let's pull up my notes. So I made a big snafu. I got a little bit mixed up because like I said, I had a couple recent parent questions, but again, parent questions kind of come a lot. And I do my best to kind of wrap them up. I believe the person who wrote this is Teresa, and I could be wrong, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But the question is, what is gentle parenting? That's the one I wanted to kind of take as a summation of all kind of the questions that are around this question of like, how do we parent and what's the right thing to do here and there? The question is, what is gentle parenting? And I think I'll answer a lot of people's question who've written in that I can kind of get to a lot of those, but which by just taking her question. So thank you for that. We're gonna just throw them all in. Okay. So what is gentle parenting? I've actually called the way that I parent present parenting. I don't call it gentle parenting. One, because I haven't like researched that to know what it really actually means. It's just some little buzzword on social that I don't particularly know what people mean. What I find resonance with is being a present parent. Because what presence is in all my life, in every which way, 360, presence is what gives me clarity. It's what gives me peace and presence, or sorry, rather patience when it comes to parenting. Because, and I think there's well-intentioned individuals behind the people pushing gentle parenting, because I think we just want to create a safe space for our kids. We really do. And I think more so than ever, that's all any parent wants. And you could go hardcore kind of this direction where safety is, getting it drilled into your head, what not to do, stranger danger and survival, and, money doesn't grow on trees, so don't waste it. And, it's kind of like the hard knocks, right? That kind of level. And then there's kind of the gentle parenting approach of being super empathetic and approachful, and welcoming and embracing kind of, it's okay to cry. And yes, even boys cry, and be with your feelings, and let's sit down together and breathe, and that kind of thing. I could kind of see how, oh well, that's gentle parenting, right? What you did this morning. But so that's safety, right, in our bodies. And I think depending on the generation you were raised under, you might have had it one of which way, right? Maybe too much gentle, not enough hard knocks. And so you feel maybe some imbalance there. And then if it's too much hard knocks, you feel really imbalanced as far as like being in touch with your feminine, being in touch with your security and your own inner safety and your inner peace and your inner guidance system, right? You maybe didn't learn to trust your instincts because it's all about like, do I have the right tool, the right weapon to get me by in life, instead of kind of relying and trusting on your inner wisdom. It's very kind of, there is some level to that world where it's very, I don't want to be a victim. So it's looking outside in for everything. And then over here, we want to raise our kids with this like inside out approach where it starts with me. right? Be the change you want to see in the world. Treat others how you want to be treated. Um, Kindness in the end is all that matters, right? And there it's very much kind of it starts with me, kind of this feeling, right? But it does begin with you and you understanding you and you being safe within your own skin. I think that's very, very important. And then it's kind of like, well, don't you need both? And sure, right? Absolutely. And so that's why I like present parenting over all of it, because presence will give you the attunement, will attune you to your child in what they need at any given time. They might need the hard knocks, but not like in an abusive way, but they might need you in like, I need to understand how to deal with a bear, right? If a bear is in the campsite, that, but that's let me get more. I need to know, yeah, how not to use credit cards so much, or I need to, yeah, learn martial arts for self defense, that kind of thing, right? So there is that component, and then there's also the component of, you know, trusting your instincts, not going down that alley. I don't know. Anyway, but I think it all at the end of the day kind of comes down to how safe we feel in ourselves. And so there's this idea of reparenting ourselves as we're parenting our kids, because when you feel triggered by your kid and how they're behaving, then yeah, you're feeling really like you're feeling your instinctive response to that. And where we start to break the cycle of that response, that habitual response, I should say, then we're kind of saying, okay, hold on. You know, if I were to enter the situation and parent my child right now, or be with my child right now as I am in this state of this triggered state, how I respond to them is going to help or hurt them in this situation. Am I giving them the proper guidance and modeled behavior in and of myself and my response and how I show up and what I do, how I be? Am I giving them what they need to then, oh, I see that. I could do that too. Should this situation ever really get me really frustrated again? And, I feel like, um, yeah, I don't have, um, I don't know. You just don't want to leave, you don't want to leave them with maybe something that has wounded you in the past because of your upbringing and your childhood. If what you're trying to do is break a cycle, right? If what has wounded you and been trauma for you, big T or little t or any of the above, I honestly think it doesn't. Um, if it impacts you enough to affect your personality and your walk in life, it's all big T. So, how we go about parenting our kids is first recognizing how you're being in the situation. So sometimes I just get really quiet because it is my go-to. It is my coping mechanism. And I'd rather not go like a screaming crazy person. I don't identify with that, me personally. It's not my MO. And so I do tend to kind of err on the side of calm, and I got to calm myself before I get, if I give into this trigger, then it's going to remind me of all the ways I've been inadequate or all the ways I've felt unsafe. It's going to remind me that I'm not a good mom. It's going to remind me that I don't do enough, or I don't have enough, or I'm not good enough to be, to guide my kid right now. Right. And see how that's all me. So sometimes I just get quiet because I don't want to live in those emotions, right? Start labeling and falling back on what feels like, oh, I could just fall back on what I think about myself. Maybe I have kind of berating self-talk in a particular area that I'm still cleaning up. And this is totally charged. Situation is totally charged to be how I move through that. And it really does work for me to just get calm, take a second. I mean, even when they were babies and, younger, a lot younger, I would have to step away, and I would have to call on whoever was the other adults in the room to, like, okay, I just need a second. I need to step away. And that was like how I regained my composure. And yeah. Uh, as far as then coming back after regaining my or after gaining my composure and maybe processing a little bit, okay, what's the situation call for? What does he need from me? And I know it's always love. I know it's always love. And I'm not able to access love all the time because maybe I just didn't really like the way he handled that. And so if anything, I'm so frustrated with his actions that it's making me like, okay, I really don't like him right now. I really don't like him right now. And then it's like, wait, he is 5. And so not learned enough for you to, one, not like him, two, make it who he is and respond as though that is who he is, so that he then identifies as that person who only gets this response from mommy. And it's just, I won't allow it. So I have to get my composure and come back to the situation and probably just be quiet and say, you ready to talk? Or are you did you cool off? Did you take a breath? I did. I needed to take a big breath. And anything you want to say to me, anything you need me to say to you, like, what are you feeling right now? And sometimes I'm talking in particular about my oldest son. He is able to kind of, with that presence from his mother, who I'm working on making a safe space with me. And I continually do this because I will double back on some stuff that might give us some context here. So I don't really reveal the diagnosis for him because it's his business, but I think it might help that that he has ADHD. I don't feel like um, I want to, one, say that around him. I don't say it around him as far as telling him that's what he has. He doesn't really know that is a diagnosis on him. He might have heard the word thrown around, but not from me, as far as him thinking he's got something that makes him different or makes him, you know, um, misunderstood. And I do see the merit in I see the merit in the diagnosis. I don't love the label because I think it could, one, be a crutch for himself, and other people around him. Because I think I was also maybe using it as a crutch. One, to get my way as his mother in getting him the resources he needs. So I definitely use it in the system. However, I don't want it to be what holds him back in life because, I mean, as we know, if you've done any research on ADHD, people with ADHD are brilliant, right? They have a lot of strengths. And when they are invested in something and interested in something, like, that thing can be a powerful masterpiece, whatever project. They could do really great things in the world. And honestly, I don't know, are we all ADHD? I was listening to a Mel Robbins podcast recently, and she was saying how she was ADHD. She found out she was ADHD as a mom of a 7-year-old or something, a 6-year-old, maybe 6-year-old, maybe a little older. But anyway, she in moving through the assessments of her son, she's like, "Do I have ADHD?" And I'll be honest, listening to her podcast was the first time I thought that do I have ADHD? Going through all this stuff with my son, what didn't trigger me like it triggered Mel when she was like going through it with her son, who, yes, was diagnosed with ADHD. She's like, am I diagnosed? Do I have this? All the assessments didn't necessarily clue me into, do I have ADHD? But the results of what she's experienced. She said, if I knew I had ADHD, I probably wouldn't have gone through so much of the hardship in my life as a young girl because it's so different for women. And that episode is about ADHD and how it shows up in women. And I was like, whoa, I identified with so much of how she struggled through through school as one of the main kind of areas I think we all kind of struggle through, to find our place, right? To feel like we belong, to get ahead, to advance to the next grade, to get a good grade. There's just all this just it's built around competition. It's just built around this measuring stick that is not intrinsic to who we are. It's very external. It's very masculine driven. Like, you can't get a job if you don't pass this class. I absolutely thought those things. I will not get a job if I cannot pass this stats class. And anyways, she was going through some of her kind of what her upbringing, or even more so just kind of like what she struggled with, not being having piles of paper. I remember not having piles of paper as a kid. Uh, but maybe some notebooks, loving notebooks. But she was also talking about how it was hard to finish things. She'd go to a library and start to work on a project that maybe she had like 2 weeks to get done. I'm just throwing out random numbers, but she'd have some time to get done and she would not focus on that project. And that's the same way for me too. I'd get to the library, and I still do this to this day. I get to the library and I'm just like, ooh, information. And I just want to eat it all up, and all the cool books with the cool book covers and titles and things that just like, oh, call to my soul to like learn about. I will walk out of there with so many books and not even work on my project. And I would just get lost in all the things that are just interesting and cool to me, and light me up, and really not ever crack open that history book. I would have nightmares about history a lot. It wasn't until I was an adult where history actually was interesting to me, because I chose what I was interested in and read up on as far as history goes. And then I was like forced into certain electives that had space because I didn't get into the actual history classes I wanted to in college. Oh, it was a mess. History just, ugh, and math, but more so history. I have nightmares with history where it's like I forget my book. I go the whole semester never cracking open this book, never being present in class or attending to anything the teacher's saying, just off in la la land. And this is such an identifier for a girl with ADHD, like daydreaming. And so she's not disrupting the class like maybe a boy would, where it maybe shows up as signs of aggression, or shows up as like disrupting the class, going to the bathroom, running out of the classroom every 15 seconds. It's like won't sit still, and won't listen, and tunes out. Well, she's also tuning out. She's also tuning out and she's daydreaming. And I was daydreaming quite a bit. I feel like I had senioritis every single year. But yeah, I have these dreams where I'd be going through the whole entire semester. I'd do every other subject, but history just never was touched until I showed up to my final. I'm like, oh my gosh, my final's tomorrow. Or, I'd show up to class and be like, I don't even know where my history book is, my textbook. I don't know what's it even about? What world war is this even? Are we in the 1900s? I don't know what part of history this class is even about. That's how bad my nightmares would be about history. So anyway, it wasn't until she was talking about kind of the symptoms, I guess, how it shows up, that she was like, oh, I know that I was like, oh, I might have had ADHD or have ADHD. I will say, like, as I'm going through the assessments, or as I'm like working with my son, I wasn't necessarily, I'll be honest, taking the blame of being the being the hereditary factor of ADHD. And that was wrong because now I feel like I could very well be, very much so, be part of that hereditary string, DNA strand. I don't know. That is, why he might have it. They say ADHD is uh, hereditary, but Dr. Gabor Mate, great book. His book is Scattered Minds and Other Things, The Myth of Normal. Great. You can find him anywhere on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, being interviewed everywhere. Just really profound guy, profound thinker. And it wasn't later in life that he even kind of was doing the work, his inner work. I think he, like when he was in his 50s, not even, still not doing the inner work to that he recognized he needed to do to kind of move through some of his past and like, whoa, what have I gone through? And he was not a gentle parent. He would tell you he was the screamer parent. Anyway, so he has such affection for kids now, like the struggle of what kids are going through, because it's like he does have ADHD. And I mean, don't we all to some degree like have a distractibility away from the things that we should do and want, and we just want to really focus on the things we want to do and love to do. And I don't know, at what point did we steer away from that as being kind of our guidance system, our inner compass? So of course we're not trusting our inner compass because we've been kind of taught not to. I mean, how brainwashed have we become that we can't even remember as to when in our lineage, in our ancestry, did we have to stop, probably at the start of commerce and exchange and money, and is when we had to give up the following our bliss and trusting like our gut as the guidance system, and leading with our heart, right? Like all these things that we hear nowadays, and it's like, well, isn't that a given? Well, geez, I mean, not necessarily to our parents' generation who raised us in light of the misunderstandings around those things: money, love, relationships, healing, connection. Um, what did they know? And what did they teach us? And and it isn't, and yes, right? It's not a blame game. We're not pointing fingers. That's not the point, because like I said, we've got the hard knocks life and we've got the gentle life. And or the maybe the overprotective life. We were overprotected in our childhood or something like that, right? And then at some point it was, you identify with one of those upbringings. Well, you might err so much on the other side of that. You might flip the coin so much on its head that you are now still not finding a balance. And so you might be over here with gentle parenting, parenting your kids who wish you were a little more hard knocks. You see what I'm saying? We we don't know what we don't know. All that we do know is that it begins with us. All that we do know for sure, this is what I do know for sure, is that it begins with us. All that I do know for sure is that in order for me to embody who I want to be as a mother, I've got to get present and clear and grounded and at peace, and that's why I think, you might hear a lot of moms talk about how they do wake up a couple hours before their kids do, before the house wakes up. At least I'm seeing a lot of homeschool moms, creator moms, talk about how they wake up earlier than their family because they can't really start the homeschool day without having a head start of her own, where it's like, oh, let me ground, let me center, let me find my space to breathe and think and plan, right? And plot. Okay, should this arise, how am I going to be? And let me get rid of my baggage, my clutter in my head, so that I can be connected with my kids and what they need. Because if I'm cluttered and disconnected, even in myself, I'm definitely going to clutter and disconnect with them and what they need. So It's just so important that we find our clarity as parents. We find our clarity, and we find our presence. We find our safety within ourselves, in our own skin, and in order to create the safe space that we want for our kids, whatever that is for you, right? Because your safe place for your kids is going to look different than what I interpret safe place for my kids to be. What I do have a lot of what I'm working through. I won't label it regret. But I have some things where along the way, I think us as mothers, we we are instinctual as far as when we see the shift for our kids, the shift toward hanging out with a bad crowd, the shift toward being super uh, emo and hanging out in their room all the time, the shift toward being a troublemaker, being angry, a shift toward being scared, timid, not safe, not feeling courageous, and losing kind of that, like, oh, I got it, the bravado of like, let's go after it, let's do this. I think we can kind of spot where things just okay. Oh, I think that was when that notch shifted that direction. And I will go back, and I think I'll probably will say this on my deathbed if I cannot move through this. I really do want to trust that, with our first kid, we don't know anything. I didn't know anything, but by my second kid, when what I had been exposed to as far as our rights as mothers and things like that, um, I might have relied more on. I just didn't know. Honestly, I just did not know what I could demand, I guess. And then at the same time, hospitals have a lot of authority. And so, all this to say that my son was in the NICU for 15 days. And that's not a lot of time. I know we have a lot of kids who are in the NICU for longer, and it's traumatic for the family, for the parents, for the mom who wants to nurse and be with their baby, and the baby wants to be with the mom, or the guardian, right? The mother figure. The guardian, the mother figure. I'm going to stick to that. The mother figure, whoever is signing up for that role, the mother figure. And it's hard. It's traumatic on the baby too, that they don't get that connection. Well, I wonder if I could have taken him out of the NICU sooner. Um, his APGAR and everything was all good, but there was some complications along the way that had me like, oh, thank God he's in the NICU. Like, oh, what if I took him home? I'd be like ridden with regret. I don't know what would happen if something did happen and I took him home on my own accord and was like, nope, he's fine. His brain will develop at home with me. Um, and it was during COVID, so it was like you couldn't have the two parents in, and so it was like we had to tag team, and it was very exhausting. The nurses would always be like, "Go home and get some rest. We got him. We're gonna take care of him." But they did teach me like the to not do attachment feeding, and I would keep him on a schedule. And I don't know. I think I just got so rigid with him because I was going off what I learned from the nurses. And I'm not blaming the nurses. I think they're actually saints. They were just beautiful people. They taught me so much. But I worry that, because what we do know about ADHD kids is that they are sensitive humans. That's in a nutshell. If you walk away with anything from this hotline, um, if you're going to be a gentle parent, just know that your kids are sensitive. All kids are sensitive, right? They're emotional beings. And especially, I think it's important to call it out as far as our ADHD peeps, that they're sensitive beings. They don't always know how to ask for to be met with sensitivity and an emotional safety. And with him not being home with me for all those days, it's like, oh, I felt this even back then, like we missed our bonding moment. And I feel like I'm still making up for it just because I don't know what happened. I don't know if if he missed out because my he's different than my son who did come home with me, right? Um, and that's not to compare them. It's just for me to have some insight into not to bash myself over it, but some insight into kind of like where it might have began. And even my own education on and me educating myself and what I chose to read, what I chose as an influence. Um, because maybe I was exhausted and tired. And so what resonated with me was the things that helped me not be so tired and exhausted and completely lost with how to calm a tantruming baby. And he was a very tantruming baby and toddler, and still today. I mean, 5 toddler still, but kindergartner. And so but less dramatic, less I'm using all these words I don't want to use because they're not words I use with him. I'm just using them to paint a picture, not as intense. And as far as now, but they're a lot more verbal. So he can say things that aren't so nice. So, it's just, and that's one thing. And then it's like, oh, what's the divorce I'm going through right now doing to him? What's moving him out of his childhood home doing to him? And all I can do during all of this unknown is just get grounded and present and do my clarity work to continue to be clear-headed and find, my safety, my inner peace, so that I'm leading with love. I'm leading by example. I'm modeling the behavior that I hope he takes on so that he feels better in his skin, that he knows he's an amazing boy, that he's an amazing person, that he's an amazing, lovely, beautiful human. And he really, really is. But yeah, Gabor Mate, I would say he is worth a search. If you've not heard of him, look him up. But yeah, so as far as just kind of wrapping up the question, what is gentle parenting? It's got its place. It's, it's not a scam. I think there's a place. It's not a brainwashing if you're trying to be a parent that is really attuned with your child so that you can give that child what they need to feel safe, to um, get along in the world, to make friends, to uh, follow their bliss, to lead themselves forward, right? To trust themselves. So to me, it will always boil down to being present. Present parenting is what I'll always call my style of parenting. And being kind but firm. I know you've probably heard that too if you're reading any parenting books. Being kind but firm, right? When what our kids do need, I know we've heard this and maybe we've done too much of this, like subscribing to this notion of kids need discipline. But what is your level of Discipline isn't punishment. It's definitely not public admonishment. It's not making the kid feel shame. That's not discipline. So, what is discipline? Well, discipline is having that firmness, right? Knowing that if he were to continue doing this, it would be really hard for him to uh, find peace within himself and therefore get along with other people and get along in the world and make a way for himself if he keeps doing this, right? So then we kind of teach the things like brush your teeth every morning and night. Those are kind of things. And should they buck the system, then of course we're kind but firm that you will brush your teeth morning and night. You will get into your pajamas at night to go to bed. You won't be wearing your outdoor clothes into bed. It's just not a thing in this house. And so kind but firm. And even down to, I think this is a big one, your facial expressions. Your facial expressions also are a thing that make your kid feel safe or not safe. So if you're super sarcastic, remember they don't know sarcasm, but if you want a little sarcastic, um, if you just want to raise a little sarcastic a-hole, then for sure, just be sarcastic all day long to where they're just like, I don't have a clue what my parent is even talking about. But I'll copy it I'll copy it because it gets a laugh. But no, but I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, um, recognize where your kid is at developmentally. Do you think a 3-year-old understands sarcasm? Maybe you can teach little things, right? Like, but don't be completely sarcastic across the board. They need to know that you have another language other than sarcasm. Like, they need to know that you're a safe human, down to eye connection, down to um holding their gaze, like not darting to and from your phone and looking around and never at them. Uh, it's not looking with a face that makes them feel like an inconvenience, like this, or like, what are you doing? I mean, God, can you imagine being looked at like that? I mean, my heart breaks. Um, Yeah, and saying things like, "What's wrong with you? What's the matter with you?" Awful, awful things. Awful, really. Um, for them to learn how to get by in their own skin and to trust who they are is good and whole and perfect, right? Aren't they just perfect, these precious babies? I mean, is there anything better than a baby to remind us the beauty of this world? I mean, yes, flowers, lovely, everything, just a puppy. I just die and melt. But a baby, right, reminds us of all the potential in the world. There's just so much innocence there, all wrapped up in all of this phenomenal, extraordinary life force, in this baby. And I think that's what draws us to babies. It's like, um, when you have baby fever, you want to create, right? You want to create, and you want that creation to live on and be a domino effect of like the the impact you want to have on the world, right? By creating this person, you're co-creating with God, and in that, impacting the world and affecting change. But it begins with you having first, I'm going to use the word therapists use, agency over yourself. Agency over yourself to me means kind of coming into this ownership of who I am and taking responsibility for who I am and how I'm being, how I'm showing up, and how I might be impacting others, how I might be affecting them. And so this is where my work of like, yeah, grounding, centering, coming into my own presence, right? And then going from there to be able to be uh, more aligned, um, guidance, mentor, um, leader for my kids. And um, I think this also, we got a couple of minutes, so I'm gonna end on this, but because in my notes I kind of want to say this. I want to get this out there. Something that came to mind when I was seeing how to approach this question. I thought of that series, The Disclaimer, with my girl crush, Kate Blanchett. If you've watched it, Apple TV, Disclaimer, I'm pretty sure that's the name. And suspenseful thriller. The punchline is crazy, or the punchline that I don't know, the final episode. I What do you call it when it's like it yeah, the punchline. The who done it kind of thing. Um was so like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Along the way though, so she's a career driven woman, and you see that she's lost complete connection with her son. And they show a little bit of like why that might have happened. Not to say that her choosing career to the degree that she did and maybe wasn't as there and available for her son like the father was, who kind of had to step in and be more so there for him. And they have a better relationship than the mom and the son. But you kind of see there was an incident that this whole movie, this whole limited series is about. There was this incident where that was potentially the biggest strain in their relationship, that this moment, um this kind of crux, right, this fork in the road, and they went this way instead of that way, and we know. But anyway, but it was kind of the makings of this disconnected relationship, because she did choose career in a very heavy hardcore way, because she was on the rise, right, and she loved her work and she's passionate about her work. And uh, and I think at some point didn't she wasn't there for her son. And I think that is a big, a rough topic. We should probably like visit that topic of, when you're choosing career over kids at any point, just recognize how we started this whole conversation about coming back to the opposite, right? So spending some time on the opposite side of the coin with your kids. And so it's like, to any degree, you don't have to feel like a failure at either one. You don't have to neglect either one. Um, but I think there is kind of this, depending on maybe your personality, your temperament, your drive, you are finding that I need to stay in this lane with career, because if I let it go, I might be irrelevant, or I might not ever get the people knocking down my door to work with me again. And so you kind of take on these opportunities, one after the other, leaving no time for family, because you're just taking all these on as if they'll never happen again. That's a very lack mentality. It's a scarcity mindset, right? One that we wouldn't want to live from, right? If we knew that that was the truth, that that was actually a scarcity mindset in action, manifesting our behavior as one that's like, let me go after this, right? The money, the fame, the fortune. But it's like, okay, but I had kids. And so what do they need too? She only had one son. But it's like, what does he need? And because the husband, pointing fingers though, not good. This isn't a pointing fingers game. The husband said, like, you weren't there for him. You chose career. And he calls her out, and she's made to feel guilty, and things like that. And that's not a supportive spouse, right? Because at any point they could have sat down and really hashed this out and said, well, how can I support you in your career so that you can still spend time with your son, right? The time that he needs, his mommy. Eventually he won't want you around, but you'll have created such a bond and an emotional safety for him that he will never leave you. You guys will be connected to the core, be bonded, right, for life. How can I support you in that? Maybe he didn't ask that question. Maybe she didn't know that she had the support like that. Maybe she felt like she had to go hard in business and in her career, because I think she's a journalist, or a documentarian. But anyway, she was doing that. And yeah, not really there. So she probably didn't feel like she had the support, like she could slow down with her career. And then neither maybe did the workforce give her the leeway or even the leverage to feel like she could, take a back seat there and still kind of have her finger on the pulse and her foot to the gas, and just kind of like she She does a little bit there, and then she's over here, and there's a kind of this balance. Well, I'm here to tell you that there can be that balance. And imagine with an abundant mindset, you can come into this balance where you're not neglecting your family, you're not neglecting your business, you're very much grounded in both. You're present to what both need at any given time. Will you feel like you're doing anything perfectly? Probably not. But at the end of the day, you'll have some confirmation that okay, the choices I made are moving in the direction, us as a family unit, us in the direction of of your personal vision. My personal vision for my family is that we are bonded, connected. My most important relationships in this world right now, since having kids, is them. It's my most important relationship. It's one that I need to foster and nurture and work on because I've been working on the other ones for so long. And this is right now the most precious years that my boys need me to focus on them. That's not to say that I neglected or abandoned my business. By far from it. I'm here. I'm doing this. We're still doing this. But I've known how to ask for the support I need in the ways that I need it because I have taken the step back to gain the perspective to see at which points and in what degrees and in what areas of my life do I need to ask for help, and I have the clarity to see that this is the most important part right now that I need help with. This is the dial that I want to be turning up. The rest can, lower their volume a little bit right now, but I want to turn this volume up. And so I need help from everyone else to help me with these boys when the dial's up on any particular, think of a soundboard. It's like these particular verticals in my business, I need to stay connected to and not take my eyes off the road there. And then same thing over here. I know where not to take my eyes off the road with my kids. And no, it does not feel like I'm doing anything perfectly, but it does feel completely intentional. I feel very present more often than not, and that is where I find my peace because then I know, okay, that's where I need to be. That's my guidance system. That's my compass. And so, if anything, I would say, uh, look into that idea of like, how can I be a more present parent and give my kids what they need? Because gentle parenting, you might think of it as like, well, that just means be super gentle and like be, soft spoken and okay, let's do that. And whatever else it might mean to you. But um, can it also mean play? Be playful with them. They need play, right? They need discipline, like we talked about. They need structure. They need consistency. They need to get 8 hours plus of sleep a night for well into their adolescence. Right? So much, right? That we want to be present to and present for. And and I think it'll guide you when you are present to that kind of development of your children. You will know the books to read, right? The resources to watch, and really, check in with yourself and tap in, tune in, and be like, okay, this resonates. I'm gonna go with that. Let's move forward on that, and that is present parenting. So that's me. That's what I do. Yeah. Oh, okay. So here's what I did say here. Um, as far as when it comes to, the balance of career and family, we don't know enough to one say that she was the problem, say that she was a victim of any circumstances that made her choose what she chose. But suffice it to say that she had a strained relationship with her son, and so there's the trauma, right? And at what point did she have trauma enough to then wound, right? To be maybe the source of someone else's trauma. And trauma is something that we don't make it a crutch. We still work on ourselves. We still start from within. It's anytime it feels like a blame game and you're placing judgment here and pointing fingers there, you are immediately back into a scarcity mindset where you are the victim and someone else did something to you. And that's not presence. That's not clarity. That's not enlightenment. That's not peace. If anything, that's giving your power away, right? So, you know, pray on that, consult with God about um what is the message here? What do I need to learn in this scenario? At any point you get to do that. At any point you get to ask God, okay, what now? What now? Because I don't know. Help me. Let go and let God. Tell me what to do here, you know. Um but anyway, I did want to say, like, it's not a matter of you can't have it all, right? So she was choosing career probably over her family because even her relationship with her husband was strained. But and I think the writers, were intentional about how they wrote this character. But so all the strained relationships, but super, award winning journalist, top of her game in her career. I think we can do both at the right times. And so at the right times, what right means is right for you and everybody in your world. That's what right means. There's no right or wrong outside of your frame of reference. There's no right or wrong for anybody to tell you what you're doing right or wrong. Your only guidance system is for you. My right and wrong. This is right, meaning it's aligned on my path. Nobody else can tell me what's right for me and wrong for me. I'm not wrong. I might be wrong in someone else's eyes just per their judgment, and their guidance system and their moral compass, but irrelevant to my frame of reference, my perspective of the world, my worldview. It really is that simple. Now, where it gets complicated is when we start to add laws and obviously come in conflict with other countries. And, it's like then war ensues because I'm trying to make you wrong, but really it only ever pertained to my own sense of alignment and my own course in life, where I want to go, my own game plan, right? It only pertains to me. And so the Buddha talks about, right suffering and right direction and right focus. And that is not like, he's saying that for us, right? Your own right. So we can't say that mother in this particular story was wrong. She just didn't maybe check in with her own self, her own compass, her own guidance system. And maybe she had a lot of things that she neglected within herself, the things that she wishes she did. The story doesn't go into that. But there is a lot of remorse for the strained relationship with her son. So of course she's probably wrestled with herself and her decisions along the way, but the movie's not about that. There does come a time though when you have to stop and assess the cost, right? Along your own vision. You've got a vision for your family and your life, your career, how you want to feel on your deathbed, right? There's a vision for that. I'm sure. Um, if you want to write it down, if you want to just sit and close your eyes and think about it, there's a vision that you have for your life. And the more you tap into it and look at it and see it and let it play out in your mind's eye, close your eyes and see it, the better aligned you will be. You will choose the steps that keep you aligned and on your path of what feels right, what feels good. Hey girl, hey. Thanks for coming on. But anywho, yeah, just, stop and assess the cost in your particular version of things. And that concludes our question on what is gentle parenting. We went all over the place. But okay, that's a wrap. I will see you next week, Thursday, 12 noon Pacific time for the next Clarity Hotline. Submit your question at clarityhotline.com. And I will see you next week. Peace. If you want to work with me, I will also put in the way to get on the wait list for the mastermind. To work with me, if you're a mompreneur, that is who I'm working with. If you want to um, get connected on this thought of balance in your life and your right path for yourself and your family, as far as balancing career and family, and maybe not choosing one over the other, but having kind of a nice balance. We can work on that. Okay, peace. Thanks for coming on. All right, you two, you're on with me till the end. Peace.